everybody. This is What You Need, and I want to discuss a little bit about yesteryear versus the modern form of boxing today because a lot of things are misconstrued and people do not understand. I hear a lot of people talk about how, in fact, right now, actually, I believe as this stream is going on, there's another stream where I just left with Blue Blood Sports TV, talking to other people about how many times boxers can fight a year and so on. All right, let me start this off in a way that everybody will understand what I'm talking about. So I did a post on Harry Kreb and also Gene Tunney, and people talk about Harry Kreb a lot. He was a phenomenal boxer for his time, no doubt about it. But a lot of people, especially old school fans, would say that Henry Kreb would beat, just about every single middleweight today, which is just ridiculous. That would never happen. But I think there's this perception that boxers today are softer than those in the past, and there's this perception that boxers today wouldn't face everyone. So back in the day, there was no, you know, there was no really regimented system. People fought whoever. They fought boxers from different towns and different places, and they fought any and everybody, from the bum on the sidewalk to the world champion or a guy who was a former world champion. They would fight everybody and anybody. Where you would see this more, and in regular fighting, they'd fight like every week or every twice a week, right? Every other day, in other words. Where we would see that happening today would be in the amateur program. In the earliest times of boxing, there was no amateur program. Even in the even in the uh, era of bare knuckle fighting, there was no amateur program. You just started to fight and you kept on fighting, right? And people from different districts and towns and places fought. The first, the first uh, bit of misinformation a lot of people have about boxing is that they think that fighters of the past, there were more people fighting as in the past than today in terms of boxing, and that the sport was more popular back then. Let me say this. First of all, boxing started in the UK, or what we now know as England, and the United States of America. So the world was mostly those two countries. You had people coming from Russia, Eastern Europe, and France, but for the most part, and some one or two from Africa, but for the most part, boxing was centralized around the United States of America and Europe. That's why the BBFC was big, and then in America, it was the a very in the very earlys, it was just about who was the champion of the world. Okay, in the very, 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 very earlys, there was no weight classes. People just fought. Okay, and so the first thing to kind of be structured in boxing was the weight classes, and then we had sanctioning bodies, and then we had laws governing boxing. So boxing, or bare knuckle fighting, I mean, in the very earliest, was very primitive, very prehistoric. If you look at the picture of uh, the throwback fighter you see there, and the modern fighter, they're just totally different stances, right? Okay, so boxing has evolved and has become more structured. Okay, so what you'll find is that it's not just anybody facing anybody today. Today, there's a hierarchical structure. You start off as a debutant, then you move into a prospect, and then you become a contender, and then you fight for a world title. And if you win it, you become a champion. And then if you become a multiple world champion, you become a legend, and you fight all the greats of your time. So when we talk about guys like Harry Kreb, and we talk about guys like Sam Langford, etc., these guys fought a lot. Now their job was boxing, but you have to understand the fighters at that time, a lot of them got jobbed. You know what I mean by jobbed? I mean they got conned out of their money because the managers were the ones who really made the money. And the boxers, all they wanted to do was fight, so they just kept on fighting, and they fought very regularly. There was no, not they didn't really do sparring; they just fought. So in the throwback days, dudes would fight anybody, and they didn't care. They just wanted to fight. Today, there's something called sparring, first of all, to prep for fights. And fighters fight less than they do back then because obviously several different reasons. Guys now fight according to their tier. And the amateurs, you fight anybody and everybody in your weight class. In the pros, as it says, professional boxing, you're fighting for a prize. You're fighting for money. And the way how today's boxing is that a guy who, let's say a guy, he puts in the work and he moves from, from debutante to prospect, and then he steps up from prospect to contender because he fought maybe a gatekeeper, or he fought maybe a former world champion, and then from contender he fights, and he beats all the top contenders, so he gets his way up to becoming the number one contender, and then he fights for a world title, he wins a world championship, and then he goes on to face a named fighter in his division, maybe the man of the division, maybe the guy with more belts, maybe whoever it is, the guy who everybody considers the big name in the division, and beats him. Now you tell me, every time he moves up a tier, he gets more money because he's at a different tier. He's at a different level. He's put into work. He has a lot of experience, and he has some names under his belt. He has some really good fighters that he's fought and beat. Why would he, okay, take less money after he's built up his name and built up his brand, and now he has all this and has attained great money because he fought bigger and bigger fights? Why would he take a step back? Okay, he doesn't have to. We're not talking about defending your title. Defending your title is you're going to be facing top contenders. But why would he take a step back for less pay to face a prospect? Because this prospect is seen as a great prospect and tremendous, you know, uh, amateur background and stuff. Why would he take a step back, face a prospect where he's going to get paid less? The prospect is much more is a much more skilled fighter, but he's going to get paid less to face a prospect. It doesn't make no sense. So this is why you don't see world champions facing debutantes every day. Every now and then you see it, but less and less today. You won't see world champions facing debutantes because they're at a different level to debutantes. So whereas in throwback days, you have a debutant just get thrown in the big water. Maybe you fought all, informally, and now your first official professional fight where you're getting paid for it, you go up against a world champion or against a seasoned legend or something like that. It happened a lot back in throwback times. A lot. Okay? Guys had a lot of stay busy fights. So a guy who may be a, four-time world champion and, has a lot of experience, a lot of fights on his belt, face a debutante. Okay? And so today we call that a stay busy fight. It's an absolute no in this era because, again, the era is stratified. A guy is making a lot of progress when he faces a guy with equal experience or someone who has, equal level, not just of experience, but skill and so on. So we want competitive fights. We don't like to see showcase fights. We don't like to see stay busy fights. So this is one of the major reasons why fighters don't fight as often in the pros today. The second reason, like I said before, is because it will be taking a step back to face somebody beneath your level, and it won't be paid as much. So guys fight less, they get paid more, and based on their reputation, who they face, who they beat, they get more paid for that. For example, Keith Thurman. When you look at Keith Thurman's resume, it is a very impressive resume. But Keith Thurman hasn't fought in almost a year now. Okay, I think he fought. The last guy he fought was a former secondary world champion at 140, who fought also Gervonta Tank Davis. Right? I'm trying to remember his name. If you know his name, just call him up. The point being that Keith Thurman has why Keith Thurman would call maybe $10 million for a fight or something like that is because Keith Thurman faced Manny Pacquiao. That Manny Pacquiao is arguably well, he's already a before we already it's a foregone conclusion he's going to be in the Boxing Hall of Fame. Manny Pacquiao is a 8 division world champion, or 6 division should I say, world champion, 2 divisions lineal, extra 2 divisions lineal world champion. Either way, it doesn't matter. The guy's a living legend. Okay, and Keith Thurman was fortunate enough to have faced him. Okay, Keith Thurman has also faced world champion Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, uh, two-time world champion Sean Porter. I believe it is four-time world champion Danny Garcia, unified champion at 140, WBC champion at 147, now at 154. Keith Thurman also faced the likes of Robert Guerrero, Robert the Ghost Guerrero, a two-time world champion at the lower weight classes, and a guy who faced Floyd Mayweather. He also faced the likes of the names of I'm trying to remember who else Robert Guerrero faced, but Robert Guerrero had fierce fights with some other people. Or Andre Berto, who was a two-time world champion, etc., etc., etc. Right. So my point anyway is Keith Thurman's pedigree and the kinds of opponents Keith Thurman has faced. He's going to be taking a tremendous step backwards if he just goes in there and faces a debutante. You know, he's not going to get paid for facing a debutante. It's a no-no in this day and age. Back in the days, in throwback days, debutantes were thrown into in the water with former world champions like Keith Thurman. Okay, uh, so it's different today versus yesteryear in that respect. It's about um, fighters are not exploited like back in the old times. In the old times, fighters were exploited quite a lot. And once you've built a name for yourself, and I say built a name for yourself in terms of facing opponents, named opponents, great opponents, legendary opponents, opponents are going into the boxing Hall of Fame. Opponents who have draw crowds, and if you yourself draw crowds as a magnet, you're not going to go try to face a debutante or try to go and face a prospect. Okay, unless you're a gatekeeper, unless and so you've moved down because you've been beaten a lot by top contenders and world champions multiple times, then you become a gatekeeper, in which case then you end up having to take those kinds of fights. But basically, that's a step backwards. Now let me give you guys another one that I think is kind of ridiculous. I see people always saying this, but there's a fighter from Cuba, uh, in the 168 division, David Morrell. And I'm hearing some ridiculous things like David Benavidez should face David Morrell. And David Benavidez doesn't have a problem facing David Morrell because he can't get opponents. But the point is, David Morrell doesn't have more than, I don't think David Morrell has 12 fights. David Morrell is a secondary world champion right now. I think he's the secondary WBA world champion, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, but he doesn't even have 10 fights. I don't think David Morrell even has 10 fights. It would be a step backwards for David Benavidez to face David Morrell, even though he's already a name in boxing. Who has David Morrell beaten? No one. Okay, absolutely no one. Okay. However, even though he did kill his last opponent, unfortunately for him, but David Benavidez has faced names. He's faced Anthony Durrell and beat Anthony Durrell. He's also faced, if I'm not mistaken now, he faced David Lemieux. These are all former world champions or were world champions when he faced them. Okay. He also faced, if I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to remember who it is, but David Benavidez has faced at least three good names. It would be a step backwards for David Benavidez because he's not going to make much money off of it by him facing David Morrell. Even though David Morrell is a tremendous Cuban fighter, David Morrell hasn't faced anybody near the level of David Benavidez, and it would just be premature. So you have to carry David Morrell on. Now, the fighters themselves, they don't care, right? Fighters, what people don't understand is the same mentality of the throwback fighters from the olden days. These fighters today have as well. They'll face anybody, and anybody. It's their management. It's the people who manage them to say, hey, no. We're going to run through the system, how the system works here. You're going to earn your keep. You're not just going to just jump in there here and face the top guy and become the top guy. No, you have to earn your stripes. You have to build a name for yourself first. Okay. And so I do believe that's the right way to go, actually, not to just throw somebody in there. I mean, they did it with Vasily Lomachenko, but Vasily Lomachenko, by that time, what is he, 30 years old already? You know, the guys, look at the world champions we have today. They're in their 20s, early 20s, kind of like throwback fighters. But a lot of fans in this age, in this day, with social media, etc., we expect fighters today to just do it when we want them to do it, right? Even though the fighters, if you look at fighters fight like maybe twice a year, but they make at least four times the amount of money that former fighters used to make, fighting more fights. Now y'all will say, "Well, man, why can't we go back to the old days when they used to exploit fighters and fighters just all they felt they just wanted to concentrate on doing was fighting?" Because fighters have become more business savvy, which is very good for them. And also the quality of fights. I know this may sound strange because the average person, like Roger Mayweather said, doesn't know shit about boxing, but um, the fights now are so tactical today, and the skill of fighters is so much, I think, sharper, to some degree better than, especially defensively, than the skills of former fighters in the past. That what we have is much more tactical fights, and to see a fighter in the modern day, knock out other fighters is quite a rare thing. So that's why Javante Tank Davis is so special. Deontay Wilder is so special because these guys actually get knockouts. They're not going in there for the knockout, but they get knockouts, right? Because they do the right stuff to get them. And of course, the level of opponent has never been. Tank has never knocked out the number one guy in his division. He's never done that, right? He's not fighting the number one guy. It would be interesting to see what happens when guys like Tank, Ryan, David, I'm sorry, Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson, when they clash, what would happen? Because these are the top guys in the division. And it's very rare that top guys in the division, especially in this day and age, get stopped by the top guys in the division. So you'll never see Canelo. You did never seen Canelo knock out Triple G. You never seen Canelo knock out Dimitri Bivol. You never seen Canelo knock out Floyd Mayweather, Erislandy Lara, Danny Jacobs. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of the people Canelo could not stop. Once you are at the peak top of the division, I mean, Caleb Plant, he probably wouldn't have gotten stopped if he knew what to do, but he lacked some experience. But the top guys generally don't get stopped. Okay, they generally don't get knocked out, and no matter how much of killers they are, because they're in such great shape, they're in such great condition, the elite fighters. Now, if you look at the elite fighters of yesteryear, this is another misnomer I notice about boxing that a lot of people do not seem to realize, and that is, in boxing, people say, "Well, there was more talent back in the day." That's bullshit. Okay, the top 10 fighters in the world they usually were the same sort of guys anyway. So, when you were talking about top 10, and this is another misnomer. There were more people who used to box back in the day than today. That's not true. Let me explain why. The first reason is the world of boxing was limited to only two sets of countries. It was Canada or North America, and it was Britain. It was mostly boxers came from there. And then boxing was opened out to the world, and we had the WBC, the World Boxing Council. We had, the world participating in boxing. It wasn't just in the 1960s; it was before that, but nonetheless. And so we have way more boxing all over the world. And these tournaments now that are held, with the major sanctioning bodies, it's because we got a hell of a lot more boxers worldwide, and there's a lot more boxing going on worldwide. Okay, it's just that maybe it's diminished, maybe some in the United States because there are other sports and other contact sports and other options to play sport. It probably decreased, maybe diminished a little bit in the United States, maybe, but it's huge all over the world. Boxing is a tremendous sport, and it happens all the time, regularly, daily. So, having said that, that's one misnomer. The next misnomer that they have is that, there was more talent back in the day than today, and that's bullshit as well. Um, The elite fighters, the great fighters, the standout fighters, there have always been fighters you could count on your hand. Always. There's never been like 100 elite fighters. And then they say, well, the standards back then were higher than today, and the knowledge of boxing was high. I wouldn't say that either. I'd say that's a balanced out act. I'll explain what I mean. So, for example, um, the knowledge of boxing has been evolving all the time, and a lot of the tricks of the trade now, elite boxers understand and they know. There's a reason why elite boxers, and when we talk about elite today, it's a whole other definition because these guys train like a mother, and they use all kinds of crazy things they do. That's just way out there from what the boxers before used to do. These guys are capable. They're really way more weight conditioned. When I say way more conditioned, I mean way more conditioned than the fighters of the past. Which is why you watch the fighters today; they don't even break a sweat. They're not trying to get the second wind. They're not trying to get a second. These guys they can go hard for 12 rounds like nothing, and they not even break a sweat. That's how bad these. That's how well conditioned these fighters are today. So what you end up with is fighters with a much higher level of conditioning, much higher level of commitment to the sport. Guys back in the day used to drink, smoke, womanize, stuff like that. Not today. Today, these guys are dedicated to whatever they're doing. They're really focused. A lot of them are now, especially the generation of elite fighters that we have been fighting. Have been boxing since they were born, since they came out the womb. These guys have been boxing, and they're prodigies. A lot of them are prodigies. So there's a lot to the sport of boxing, and there's a lot that has happened, and there's a lot of information that has been passed on. Some of it's been lost, of course, but a lot of information has been passed down, and a lot of information has been assimilated in different ways, and different people have different programs and different just different approaches to boxing, as you already know. And so the sport itself, I think, has evolved. Now, I hear a lot of people talk about, um, that the boxers today are not facing each other, which is somewhat true. Um, but also, they say the sport is dying since after Floyd Mayweather came in and changed the game. But it's not true. The sport is not dying. But here's the thing: this is where the problem lies. People who have not earned their place at the table. What I mean by that is, we have people who are behaving like divas, people who have not beaten anybody, you know, not even a world champion, uh, and they feel entitled to more money. They feel entitled to calling out fighters as if they're something, and then they cancel fights. And I've seen this now time and time again with Ryan Garcia. He calls out fighters. He says how much he wants to face this fighter, and then he turns around and he ducks. He runs away from the fighter. He's clout chasing. So you got clout chasers out here, and they're spoiling the sport. They get the fans all riled up and their hopes very high, and then they don't have the fight happen. So you have clout chasers like you had this clout chasing situation with Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, for example. Everybody's all excited to see this fight. Okay, finally, this fight's going to happen. And then the fight doesn't happen. And that's clout chasing. That is riling up the fans, making them all anticipate something, and then they just throw you on your face and have you disoriented and very much depressed and disappointed that they can't make a fight happen. So when fights fall through, that's really nasty, and it's been happening. They talk about Caleb Plant, for example, versus David Benavidez. That's something we would like to see, but apparently they're dragging their feet on when is the date for this fight. And I think Blue Blood Sports TV actually was talking about that on his channel. When you look at guys like Ryan Garcia, who's supposed to have faced David Haye, who's supposed to have faced Tank years ago, and he did like if he wanted to face Tank, and then even now I'm hearing Oscar De La Hoya talking about he'll move on. It was a deadline for Monday and all this bullshit. Listen, if you're not serious about facing this guy, you're not serious about facing these dudes, then just shut the hell up. You know, um, I hate clout chasers just like everybody else. Fans, they do as if a fight's going to crystallize and then the fight doesn't happen. Now I know this used to happen behind closed doors before, But now taking your dirty linen and airing it out in public is, to me, it's just disgusting. And of course, fans love to see big fights, and they love fights where they can't exactly predict a winner. Those are good fights. I just think that that is the problem with boxing. You have guys who talk like if they ready to do something, but then when you call their bluff, they're not ready to do shit. They're just full of shit. They're just talking. And I think that is what is annoying about the sport of boxing today. And then you have people who they prefer not to face certain opposition, of course, but in addition to that, they make a whole set of excuses for why they're not going to be facing a guy. If it's not if it's not on the cards for now, if you're not serious about the shit, then don't talk about it, man. Don't talk about what you're not serious about. Don't lead the fans down a road that you're going to really face this guy, and you're not about that. You're not ready for that. It's not your time to face the dude. These are the kinds of things that I don't like about the sport of boxing, and I think a lot of fans do not appreciate about the sport of boxing. Right? If you're just going down your lane and you're doing your thing, and when you're ready, you face up with a dude, then just say that. Say, I'm not ready to face this guy right now. Okay? I want to be able to rake in some more money. I want to get a little bit more experience. I think he's seasoned, he's experienced, he's ready. I'm not ready for him yet. Just be straight up and honest. Okay? Whether we call that a duck or not doesn't matter. You know, but it's really ridiculous when I see people, talking, it's just stupid. You have these Terrence Crawford fanboys, you got these Aerospace fanboys. I don't give a damn about neither of y'all. Neither about the both fighters unless they're going to face each other, which doesn't look like they're going to do that. So what the hell? Who cares? If you're not going to face each other, you don't want to be undisputed apparently, and just get the fuck out of the way and let somebody else do it. You know what I'm saying? I don't appreciate people who they say they're going to do X, Y, and Z and then they don't do it. I don't appreciate those people because you're full of shit. That's what you're telling us. You're not backing up what you say. And in boxing, it's about backing up what you say. You know what I mean? And if you can't back it up, now if it's the other guy's fault, so be it. But if you can't back up the shit, then shut the fuck up, man. Just shut up. Don't say anything. So that's how I feel about that. Sorry about the F-bomb. The point is, that is what's vexing about the sport of boxing. A lot of guys chattering and running their mouth, but they ain't doing shit. That's what annoys me about boxing. And I think it annoys a lot of fans. Because what you're just doing is annoying the fans. And you know you're annoying the fans. You're talking like you really about it. And then when it comes to action, you're not about it. That's the bullshit I hate about the sport of boxing. You know? So, I think a lot of fights can happen. Uh, Definitely co-promotion is necessary. If you have two promotional companies, the companies need to put their differences aside and make sure the fight happens. Um, I'm hoping that Tank and Ryan Garcia will happen. I know Ryan Garcia's training his butt off for that. And Tank, I think Tank's about that. He wants that work. And I would love to see that fight. Quite frankly, I'd love to see that fight. And I wish Tank nothing but the best in that. And Ryan nothing but the best. I know Tank will beat Ryan. But I still would like to see it. And maybe Ryan can prove me wrong. But I feel that Tank will beat Ryan. No matter what Ryan does. And I guess Oscar doesn't want that to happen to his fighter. But guess what? It's a good learning experience. And if Tank beats him, stops him, whatever, it's still a good learning experience for Ryan. And hopefully that will allow Ryan to up his game. Either way, I don't really care until I hear them it's signed, sealed, and delivered. Because Ryan is full of shit. And if he turns out to be full of shit again, then we'll just forget about him. Because he's had ample opportunity to step up to the plate. He's had opportunities. He put himself in a position to win a world title, and then he backs down. With respect to Devin Haney, he is the real deal. Vasily Lomachenko, he's proven to himself with all the fights he's had to be, a name in the sport of boxing. Um, of course, Lomachenko tried to put Devin Haney in a disadvantageous position. Trying to weight drain Devin Haney. So the fight's going to be in May. Uh, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference because even though Devin Haney may be too big for the weight class, and he just make that exception, to punish his body a bit. Just make sure he's on point. He'll have to look at his diet and how he deals with himself, and hopefully, mind over matter, he should be able to be in the best shape of his life, even though he may be staying in the division a little longer than usual. Um, I'm pretty sure after the Lomachenko fight, he's going to probably move up to 140. You know, um, my point anyway is that I know Devin Haney will face Vasily Lomachenko. That's the kind of guy he is. I don't know if Ryan Garcia is going to face Tank Davis because he's been full of shit for the longest while. So that's the annoying part about that. I know Tank is not going to face Devin Haney at 135. It's not going to happen. Devin Haney's not going to face Shakur. Will Shakur face Tank at 135? Who knows? Okay? Hopefully. But I don't know. See, I know two fighters who could beat Tank's ass. Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney. They beat Tank's ass. And no disrespect to Tank, but Tank knows this as well. He knows the two biggest threats to him, the guys who could beat him, are Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney. Okay? I think Tank beats Ryan. I think Tank beats, most of the 135 pounders. Okay? But I'm not saying Tank won't beat Devin Haney or he can't beat Devin Haney or he can't beat Shakur. There are situations I can see in my mind where he beats them. But honestly speaking, them two guys, they take pride in hitting and not getting hit. And Tank also takes pride in that, don't get me wrong. But he gets hit way more than Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson. And as a result of that, I see them beating him, right? If you ask me, who am I putting my money on? Either one of those guys that face Gervonta Tank Davis would beat him. But I don't think that Tank will ever face Devin Haney because I don't think Tank will go back up to 140 to face a Devin Haney. Do I think that Tank may face Shakur? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. Does Shakur win that fight? Absolutely. Do I think that Shakur will face Devin Haney in the future? Yes. That's a fight to look forward to, and it will happen. But as to, Tank facing Devin Haney, I don't think that'll ever happen. I think unless Tank moves up in weight to 140, that's not a fight that's possible where he faces Devin Haney. He has to go up to 140 to face Devin Haney. Devin Haney's last fight is definitely going to be Vasily Lomachenko. He's not going to stick around 135 after that. He's going up. Ryan Garcia is already at 140. So Teofimo Lopez is also at 140. So those are two fights Devin Haney could look forward to. Possibly. It depends on what he wants to do. My point anyway is that you have a lot of exceptional fighters in this era. Exceptional fighters. I can list them. Again, they're the exceptional fighters in every single weight class. When you total everything, it comes to probably about 30 or 40 fighters at most. I'm talking about every single weight class you can talk about. The exceptional ones, the elite ones. It's only 40, maybe out of thousands and thousands and thousands of fighters. Okay, so it's something for people to understand, and this has always been that way in boxing. the creme de la creme. It's always a finite number that stand out in every era. So I hope that people would understand that um, the past, you know, is not better than the present. Yes, in terms of getting more regular fights that you want to see and matchups you want to see when you want to see them, maybe the past to some degree was better than the present. Maybe. But in this day and age, I believe that the present, especially except for the clout chasers out there and the people who do not deserve certain matches, they haven't earned it. Like Ryan Garcia. Y'all gonna be like, what? I'm talking about in professional boxing. I'm not talking about Jake Paul and those guys. To me, they're sideshow guys. They're sideshow guys. But the professional boxing end of things, um, you know, you got to understand that professional boxing, um, it takes a little bit of time to get the matchups you may want to see. It's just the way how it goes today. Um, but hopefully, you get to see a lot of the matchups you want to see. I would say this to each and every one of you guys out there before I shut down. One, when you're talking about boxing, understand that a fight ain't gonna happen until the contracts are signed. So don't believe the bullshit out there. That's why I'm not gonna talk much about any fight from here on in unless it's signed, sealed, and delivered, and these guys are walking inside of the ring. They done weigh-ins and then going inside the ring. I'm gonna talk more about fights like that because I know the fight's been done and the contract's been signed and everything. Um, because it's really ridiculous hearing, oh, these fights are going to come up, then these fights are going to happen, and then you find out they're not happening. So I'm tired of that nonsense, and so I'm only going to talk about fights that have been signed. Fights that have not been signed, or you want to speculate about matchups, we could do that. But fights that have not been signed, I'm not going to be committing myself to them and talking about them anymore. So that's how you can avoid getting disappointed and wasting your time on things that are not going to happen or may never ever crystallize. You just watch, listen, and that's why I haven't been talking too much about boxing. I haven't even talked about the weekend fights here because I thought those fights are YouTube fights, and I'm not really interested in YouTube fights like that. Um, Unless it's a compelling matchup, and there was nothing compelling about it this weekend, so I didn't bother to talk about it. And it's more of a sideshow thing, like I said before. So sideshow pieces is not necessarily my thing. I like competitive fights and I like boxing fights. I like to talk boxing. Um, One more thing. There is a difference between a cash cow of a division and the best fighter in a division. Tank Davis is not the best fighter in the division, and we have to go based on accolades. We have to go based on accomplishments in the division. And Tank Davis has not become undisputed. Until Tank Davis becomes undisputed, he is not the best fighter in the division. That's why we call it undisputed. So I don't really give a fuck what anybody says out there. I'm telling them right now, Tank Davis is not the best lightweight in the division. That is Devin Haney. Period. Okay? Don't tell me about he got the hardware. He is the king of the division. The king of the division is Devin Haney. That's just the way how that goes. Okay? Again, you have to play by the rules of boxing. You have to play by what the game is, what boxing says. And what boxing says is the guy who is undisputed at this point in time is Devin Haney. Okay? He is the man of the division. Now, if you're talking about the cash cow of the division, that's Tank Davis. No doubt about it. Right? That's why people keep on calling him out. He is the cash cow of the division. But the man of the division is Devin Haney. Okay? It's just like, well, in this case, Canelo Alvarez is the man of 168, and he's the cash cow of 168. Okay? He's the best fighter of 168. That's just what it is. Okay? We can't say you a better fighter than another guy and you don't have the accolades to back it up. In boxing, it's a doing sport. You have to back up what you say. This is what a lot of people just don't understand. Boxing's about backing up what you say. If you say the best fighter in the division, then how the hell you not undisputed? Go grab that. When you become undisputed, then we can say you're the best fighter in the division. What we know is you're an attraction. You put asses in the seats. You draw crowds. That's what we know. But you ain't the best fighter in the division. Get the hell out of here. You are not the best fighter in the division. The best fighter in the division is Devin the Dream Haney. You want to take that spot, then you have to go face Devin the Dream Haney. And if you ain't want to face Devin the Dream Haney, then you'll never be the best fighter in the division. It's just what it is. And again, Tank Davis don't have no fucking belt. That's a secondary title. That ain't no title. The man with the titles is Devin Haney. You want to get any title in the division. So don't go be talking about you got the world title and this is a world championship fight. Don't be talking that rubbish. Don't be talking that rubbish. You ain't got no world championship fight. You want to talk about email champion? You can't talk about Devin Haney, no email champion. What the hell you are? At lightweight. I'm not saying you wasn't a world champion once or twice. That's super featherweight. You never been a super lightweight world champion, and you've never been a lightweight world champion. It's just what it is. They be fooling you with them secondary titles. You ain't win nothing. That ain't no championship fight. That's a secondary title. Nobody gives a damn about that. That's like an interim title. That's like a NABF, NABA. You ain't no champion just because you win that. Okay? They fooling you. Okay? Say the two world champions. Get out of here. You ain't no damn champion. You was a champion at super featherweight. That's it. You've not won any other world titles. No primary world titles, that is. So it's about time people get it straight, understand, the sport has come a long way, but there's been a lot of stupidity along the way, shall I say. We got people claiming they somebody when they's nobody and they beat nobody. We got people out here, tooting their horn and making people wanting paychecks that they don't deserve. They didn't earn that, right? You gotta have a list of names, a list of now. This is another thing. Floyd Mayweather said belts don't make me. I know I talked about this before, but still I'm gonna bring it up. Floyd Mayweather said belts don't make me. But when did Floyd say that? That's after he got almost every single belt. He got every single belt. He built a reputation. He had a name. He was the cash cow. Of course, belts don't make him then. But belts made him. Belts helped him to get where he needed to be. Okay? But at that point in time, he don't need no damn belt. He Floyd Mayweather. Everybody know who he is. Right? Everybody know how great he is. Okay? So once you establish yourself, when you are an established fighter, when you are a name in boxing, a big name. None of these guys are big names in boxing. Tank is not even a big name in boxing. What do I mean by that? Tank has beaten what is the number one fighter that Tank Davis has beaten in his division? Any number one fighter in any division he's been in that he has beaten? And the answer is none of them. He never beat Miguel Berchelt, who was the number one fighter at super featherweight. He never beat Vasily Lomachenko, who was the number one fighter at lightweight when he came up to lightweight. And then after Vasily Lomachenko was Teofimo Lopez. He never faced him. Okay, and then it changed hands to Kambosos, and then it changed hands to Devin Haney. The number one fighter in the division. He's never beaten the number one lightweight. He's never beaten the number one super lightweight in the division. The number one super lightweight in the division is still Josh Taylor to this day. Tank has not faced Josh Taylor. He's never beaten him. So Tank has never beaten the number one fighter in any division he's been in. Right? So he beaten some fighters. Right? So Tank is nothing. You know what I'm saying? He beat some names, but he is still just growing as a fighter. He's got a lot of hype behind him. But who the hell did he beat? Now, Devin Haney, he beat the number one lightweight in the world. He beat George Kambosos. That's the guy that beat Teofimo Lopez. That's the guy that beat Vasily Lomachenko. And now he's going to face Vasily Lomachenko, who was once considered a number one pound fighter in the world, as well as the number one fighter in the world. Okay? My point being, Teofimo Lopez, when he beat Vasily Lomachenko, if I'm not mistaken, Vasily Lomachenko at the time was the number one pound for pound fighter in the world by ESPN. At the time that Teofimo Lopez beat him. Okay? And my point being this, for all of you guys to understand. You get a name by beating name guys. But not only that, you also have to spend a career or a career beating top guys repeatedly. That's how you build a reputation. So when Floyd Mayweather said, belts don't make me, he could say that at that point in time. But they made him. They don't make him at that point in time, but they made him. So you ain't got a damn belt. You trying to beat Floyd Mayweather. You say belts don't make me. What the fuck do you know about that? You haven't even fought nobody. You didn't even fight a world champion, Ryan Garcia. You want more pay for what? Because you knocking out people? Okay, you knocking out 10 cans. You knocking out guys in the experience. But you ain't knock out a world champion yet. And when I say world champion, I ain't talking about no secondary world champion. I'm talking about a primary world champion, a former primary world champion. You haven't even faced a former world champion. Devin Haney's least faced Jorge Linares, two-time lightweight champion of the world, right? He faced Kambosos, all right? Unified, 3-belt world champion, okay? When he was world champion, okay? Who beat a number of world champions, okay? Former and present. So what I'm trying to say is, and I'm not saying that Devin Haney, I'm not even saying that Devin Haney done anything yet in this. Well, he's done something that will be considered. He's undisputed. So he's actually done something, right? He actually beat the number one fighter in the division at the time, okay? So when we talk about Devin Haney, he's in a different status, a different ranking class to Gervonta Tank Davis. Davis has done. He's been brought along well, and he looks spectacular. He looks fantastic, but he ain't better than Devin Haney. He's not. You can't never say that. If you know boxing, he's not better than Devin Haney until he beats Devin Haney. To beat a champion, you got to beat the champion. You tell me Devin Haney's not the champion of the division? The champion? There ain't no other champion. Only Devin Haney's the champion. All them other guys are pretenders. They're fakers. They're bullshitters. The only champion at lightweight right now is Devin Haney. You guys understand? It's like with Canelo Alvarez. The only champion at 168 is Canelo Alvarez. All them other guys is pretenders, fakers, if they call themselves champion. Because they're not champions. David Morrell, you ain't no damn champion. To beat a champion, you got to beat the champion. And the champion is Canelo Alvarez. Now, if he don't want to fight you, that's another story. But the point is, that's who the champion is. The best fighter at 168, whether you guys like it or not, is Canelo Alvarez. That's just the way how it is. It's not because he has the hardware. It's because he is the only champion in the division. The highest person in the division is the undisputed champion, period. You want to be the number one guy in the division, you got to beat him. You got to go through him. Now, whether he engages you or not is a totally different story, but that's just how things are ranked. You see what I'm saying? We all know Devin Haney would give Tank a shot in a heartbeat because Tank's a cash cow. Devin Haney would give, he's actually be chasing down Vasily Lomachenko. Okay? So he wants Lomachenko and he wants Tank. All right? That's what Devin Haney was clear on that. Okay? Let's talk about some other divisions. Let me show you guys something. Who is the number one guy at welterweight right now? People say Errol Spence. They say Terrence Crawford. Errol Spence got more belts, right? But the difference here in this situation is there is no one champion of that division. Now, when a guy clean up the whole division, meaning he get all the belts, then there's only one champion in that division. So we got one champion at super middleweight. We got one champion at bantamweight in Naoya Inoue. We got one champion. Well, we had one champion at 140 super lightweight, which was Taylor, right? And of course, he got stripped of a couple belts, but he's still the number one guy because you know he was undisputed and they stripped him. Um, and then you have I believe who's the other guy? Who's the other guy? Who's undisputed? There's a couple of undisputed guys. Oh yeah, and then you got the 154-pound division where Jamel Charlo is the only champion there. Okay, who the number one guy in all those divisions? It's the guy who's undisputed. Period. Don't give a damn that he's cash cow or not. Okay, so it don't change. That's just boxing. You got to follow the boxing rules, and these are the rules. You want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And the best, in this case, in those divisions, is undisputably the champion. Who is, and we just say the guys' names. I think it's 168 is Canelo, 154 is Jamel Charlo, 140 it's whatever the guy's name is, something Taylor. Y'all know who I'm talking about. At one, at one, at 135 it's Devin Haney. I think that's it. And then of course you got bantamweight. At bantamweight you got Niall Inui. That's it. That's all the undisputed champions currently in the world right now. Okay. Once you say undisputed, there is no question who is the best fighter. There's no question. Once you're undisputed, the guy who's undisputed, the undisputed champion, he's the best. Period. And if you want to, that's why they say, to be the best, you got to beat the best, right? So, if you're talking sanctioning body, who's the best guy in the WBA, or who's the best guy in the WBC, that's totally different, right? Even though, again, whoever is the champion, the real champion, the primary champion of that sanctioning body is the best in it. That's just the way how it go. I mean, it's common sense, right? Right? Common sense. King of the mountain, right? King of the mountain. So the king of the division is the dude who's the champion. Period. Okay? You can't be saying you the champion. I'm the champion of the division. I'm the best fighter in the division. And you ain't prove it. You can't be the best fighter in the division. And there's a champion in that division. The fuck you talking about? All right? So Tank, I don't know what Tank is drinking. But, motherfucker, if you want to be the best in the division, you have to face Devin Haney. Period. You're not the best in the division. That's just what that is. David Benavidez says he's the best in the division. No, motherfucker. You're only the best in the division when you beat Canelo. You're only the best in the division because he's the undisputed champion. The only way you can be the best in the division is to beat the man of the division. Beat the undisputed champion of the division. If you got an undisputed champion. Now, the guys who hold more hardware is a little bit tougher because let me explain what I mean. So, for example, when you're talking about Errol Spence Jr. and Terrence Crawford, they supposed to fight for undisputed so we can know who's the best welterweight in the division. It don't look like that's going to happen, so fuck both of them as far as I'm concerned. When you talk about Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol, to find out who the best in the division really is, because there only can be one winner, right? When those two clash. You need to unify. And this is the way how boxing goes. All right? Now, some people are talking about, I see somebody just left a comment on here. Yeah. Some guy named Sebastian Almada says Tyson Fury or Ali, honestly. I don't know what you're talking about. It's different eras, Muhammad Ali and Tyson Fury. All right, so Muhammad Ali is the greatest. Period. Okay, there will be no other GOAT in boxing. Okay, he's the greatest, and the reason he's greatest is because he fought everybody. All right, and he was undisputed champion. I believe he was undisputed two times. I think he was 2 times undisputed. I think he was 3 times world champion. I think something like that. So I think he became the WBC champion after he beat, who was it? I'm trying to remember. It was Foreman, George Foreman, or something like that. And then I think, or was he undisputed? I can't remember. But what I do remember is he lost the title to Spinks, and then he won it back. I think he was WBC champion. Yeah. So I think it was only one time he was undisputed. I think when he was Cassius Clay, he was undisputed. All right. I think when he was Cassius Clay, he was undisputed. Point is, Muhammad Ali was undisputed. That was he was the only champion in there. There was no question marks on him. Um, and Tyson Fury's had most of the belts. He had WBC, he's had WBA, he had WBO, he had the IBF, but he's never had them all at once. So Tyson Fury, who has Tyson Fury faced and beaten though? Tyson Fury's beaten Deontay Wilder and he's beaten Vladimir Klitschko. That's about it. You know. So now these are two different eras though. You're looking at two different eras. And it's very hard to compare fighters from different eras, to be honest with you. You know. Um, so when you ask me that question, I prefer to look at Tyson Fury in this era. I would like to see him up against Alexander Usyk, and we'll find out who is the best. And again, undisputed. So if Tyson Fury ends up facing Alexander Usyk has the WBA, IBF, and WBO titles, and Tyson Fury has the WBC. So if Tyson Fury faces Alexander Usyk, and the winner unifies the titles, now we know who's the best of this era, right? Because that would answer that question. And would be the best fighter because he's a champion. Now, the champ will still have to defend, but he would have the status of the best of this era, which is really the most important thing. It's not so much, you know, because the thing about it is Tyson Fury can never ever face Muhammad Ali. He just never can. It'll never happen. So we could never know who was better. What we look at is accomplishments, and Ali is way more accomplished than Tyson Fury. Like he's way more accomplished. So Tyson Fury only got what Wilder and Klitschko. That's it. Ali got Ali got Sonny Liston. Ali got Joe Frazier. Ali got George Foreman. Ali got Ken Norton. These are all world champions. Okay. Ali got Floyd Patterson, Archie Moore. What's the guy's name? I forgot his name. Ali beat like about 10 to 12 world champions, bro. You know what I'm saying? So when you talk about Muhammad Ali, and he's a Hall of Famer and all that. So when you talk about Muhammad Ali, I mean Tyson Fury beat how many world champions now? Two. I mean, come on now. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? You know. So you could. Well, first of all, you will never ever call Tyson Fury the greatest because that's Ali's thing. He'll never be the greatest. But Tyson Fury, he could be the Gypsy King, which is what he is. You know what I'm saying? Gypsy King. You know what I mean? Skill wise and size wise, Tyson Fury probably would be a nightmare for anybody to face. But then again, we got Alexander Usyk, who's been, he's been beating bigger guys. So, and Usyk knows that Tyson Fury would be a tough test for him. But, you know, see Tyson Fury versus Usyk, and maybe we know who's the best of this era, which is really the thing that counts. Okay, because you can't take Tyson Fury and pit him up against Muhammad Ali. Ali's dead, first of all, and Ali was with another era. You know what I mean? So you basically look at the era that's in front of you. Is Tyson Fury probably a better fighter than Muhammad Ali? Probably a better fighter. Yeah, probably. Of course, Tyson Fury's seen the canvas way more times than Muhammad Ali has seen the canvas. But then again, he's fighting fighters that Muhammad Ali's never faced before. Like Muhammad Ali never faced the Deontay Wilder. I'm just telling you right now. Yeah. George Foreman was a big, strong guy, but he wasn't. First of all, he wasn't as tall. He wasn't as long as Deontay Wilder, and he wasn't as freakish with the power that Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder has freaky power because it's not only hard, it's fast. Okay, and Foreman had thudding power, and he's deceptively quick, but he ain't as fast as Deontay Wilder. Not even Ron Lyle was a tremendous puncher himself. But again, Wilder's just lightning quick, and he's very nimble. He's very agile. He's very athletic. You know what I mean? So it's just totally different. And Tyson Fury handled that. He was able to manage, you know, go toe to toe with Deontay Wilder in two fights. He went toe to toe with him. Stopped him twice. You know what I'm saying? And Wilder got his licks in too. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a different era. Fury's like 6'9". Deontay Wilder's like 6'7". These are just monsters compared to Muhammad Ali's like 6 foot what 3. He's like a small guy compared to those dudes. And I'm not saying that Muhammad Ali, we don't know what would happen if he had the training of today. He was really in peak condition back in his time, and he was probably quicker than almost any guy, in his division in his time. You know what I mean? He always had problems with smaller guys because they were quicker. They could match his speed. The bigger, more powerful guys were slower than him, more or less. So Ali had his, it's just like Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury has his quickness again. He has quickness and speed over generally most of his opponents. Same thing with Wilder, actually. But you know, those guys are. Again, you're talking about freaks of nature, or shall I say, we're talking about special guys. So Tyson Fury is a very special guy. Deontay Wilder is a very special guy. Muhammad Ali is a very special. You have to acknowledge the specialness of these guys. These are the elite fighters. These are the best of the best. You know what I'm saying? The question is, could Tyson Fury do to Usyk what he did to Wilder? I don't know. Usyk's a really smart fighter, so I would like to see how that would pan out. And I wouldn't be surprised if Usyk beats Tyson Fury, even though I favor Tyson Fury to win. But I've seen guys, give Tyson Fury problems. The guy that I think of right now is it was a southpaw fighter. I forgot what his name is right now. And Usyk's orthodox now. Otto Wallen. Otto Wallen. He busted Tyson Fury's. If I'm not mistaken, he busted Tyson Fury's eye. Right. So if Otto Wallen could do that, who's to say that Usyk can't do that? You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying. If Usyk knows what he's doing, you know. And Usyk's southpaw as well. I think Otto Wallen's southpaw and Usyk's southpaw, if I'm not mistaken. Even more interesting. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. You know what I mean? I would love to see that fight. Again, whoever wins, they're the dude, right? They're the best. So, and Tyson Fury's gotten tons of money. I don't know if he's as famous as the money he made, but Tyson Fury made some bank. You know what I'm saying? So, he good to go. And the heavyweights always make money. They're supposed to be the big money fights anyway. Yeah. So you would again, I would say, based on the evolution of boxing, that Tyson Fury is probably a better fighter than Muhammad Ali, because Lennox Lewis was a better fighter than Muhammad Ali, right? And I'll argue that Tyson Fury is probably a better fighter than Lennox Lewis. But the problem with that is I can't really say that definitively because Tyson Fury don't got the accolades that, you know, a Lennox Lewis or even a Muhammad Ali had. A Lennox Lewis and Muhammad Ali were both undisputed. Lennox Lewis fought and beat 10 world champions. Muhammad Ali fought and beat, I believe it's 10 world champions as well. So, I mean, you know, when you talk about it like that, and then it looks it's a totally different story. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I'm pretty sure if Lennox Lewis would beat Muhammad Ali. So I wouldn't be surprised if Tyson Fury were to beat Muhammad Ali. It wouldn't surprise me one bit. But then again, you never know. You really want to see the fights to really know for yourself. You know. And again, I'm not knocking Muhammad Ali. He was and is the greatest of all time. It is what it is. You know. He earned that. He earned that title. So he should get it. Right. So anyway, that's it for me. It's an hour and four minutes 42 seconds. I'm gonna wrap it up right here and now. I just wanted to say that because it's just a lot of stuff I see people saying that It's not true at all. It's just not true. And the problem with modern day boxing is some of these guys are clout chasers. They're not about it. We know Jerome Ennis is about it. We know Devin Haney's about it. We know David Benavidez is about it, right? I don't understand why he doesn't face Lonnie B. Face Lonnie B. Dude talking about facing Caleb Plant. Y'all better make sure that fight happen, because if that fight didn't happen, then I'm gonna say that David Benavidez ducked Lonnie B, because Lonnie B was being on his ass trying to get that fight. Lonnie B came down from 175 pounds. He can make 168, and he ain't no punk. He ain't somebody that David Benavidez is just gonna run over. I can tell you that right now. He's actually more dangerous than I think than Caleb Platt, because he's got a lot of seasoned veteran experience. He knows what to do. Could upset the card though. Yeah, and Lonnie B's old. Anyways, man, that's what I got for you guys. I'm gonna catch you guys later. I'm what you need. Peace.